South Africa made a very bold decision that surprised the whole world. Normally, when one country finishes its time as G20 president, it flies to the next host nation to hand over the leadership baton. This is a tradition that has been followed for many years, and every country respects it. But this time, South Africa said no. They refused to travel to the United States for the ceremony. Their message was very simple. If you want the G20 presidency, you must respect us. We will not fly across the world just to follow a tradition that benefits you more than us. This decision was not rude. It was a statement of dignity. South Africa wanted to show that Africa is not a continent that can be pushed or ordered around. For many years, African leaders have been expected to travel to Western countries to ask for support, approval, or permission. But now, things are changing. By refusing to travel, South Africa showed confidence and self-respect. The country said, "We are equal partners, not followers." This move sent a powerful message across Africa. Many Africans celebrated on social media, calling it a big moment for African pride. South Africa showed that they can stand strong even when facing a superpower like the US. This event reminded the world that Africa is rising, becoming more confident, more united, and less dependent. South Africa's bold decision proves that a new era has begun. An era where African countries stand tall and make decisions based on respect, not fear. The United States shocked many people when it announced that it would not attend the G20 summit held in Johannesburg. This decision surprised not only South Africa, but also leaders around the world. For many years, the US has always been present at the G20 summits. Presidents from America always attend because the G20 is one of the most important gatherings for world leaders. But this time was different. The US decided not to send any delegation. No president, no vice president, and not even a high-ranking official. This sent a very strong and strange message. Many people wondered, why would the US ignore such an important meeting? Some said it was because the summit was in Africa. Others said it was because of political reasons inside the US. But no matter the reason, the impact was huge. Many Africans felt disrespected. They said, "If we can travel to America when you invite us, why can you not travel to Africa when we invite you?" The absence of the US at the summit made the tension between the two countries even worse. It also showed the world that the US may not be taking Africa seriously enough. But South Africa did not respond with anger. Instead, they responded with calm strength. They said, "If you do not come, that is your choice. We will not beg you." This response showed maturity and dignity. The world noticed that South Africa handled the situation with confidence. In the end, the US decision hurt its image. It made many nations question America's respect for Africa, and it strengthened Africa's belief that they must stand together and become more independent. Former US President Donald Trump created a lot of tension when he publicly criticized South Africa. He said South Africa was not qualified to lead the G20. These comments were seen as disrespectful by many people around the world. Trump's words felt like an attack, not just on South Africa, but on the whole African continent. Trump has a history of making strong and sometimes hurtful comments about Africa. Many Africans still remember when he once said Africa should be recolonized, which made millions of people angry. So when he questioned South Africa's ability to lead the G20, it brought back those painful memories. But South Africa did not react emotionally. Instead, they took a strong but calm stance. They said they did not need validation from Trump or anyone else. Their message was clear: we earned this role. We deserve this role, and we will not let anyone disrespect us. This created a big discussion across Africa. Many people asked why Trump treated African countries differently compared to Asian or European countries. Others said this moment was important because it showed Africa is no longer afraid to push back. Trump's comments also made many African youth wake up. They felt insulted, but instead of being discouraged, they became more motivated. They said, "We must rise, build our industries, grow our economies, and show the world our true power." South Africa's calm reply showed leadership. It showed that Africa can respond with wisdom instead of anger, And it showed that Africa is ready to stand strong, even when powerful countries or leaders try to bring it down. When the United States made comments and decisions that many considered disrespectful, South Africa did not panic or react aggressively. Instead, they behaved with dignity, confidence, and professionalism. They did not shout or complain. They simply said, "We will not chase anyone. Respect must go both ways." This response impressed many countries around the world. Instead of fighting or arguing, South Africa chose the path of wisdom. They focused on principles, not emotions. Their message was simple. If you do not want to come to Africa for the summit, that is your choice. But we will not change our position. This calm reaction is very important for Africa's image. For many decades, Africa was seen as a continent that reacts emotionally or becomes unstable under pressure. But South Africa proved that African countries can handle big international issues with maturity. Many African youth felt proud. They said, "This is how a nation should act. This is true leadership." South Africa showed that respect must be mutual. They showed that Africa will not beg for attention or approval. This dignified response also taught a big lesson to the world. Africa is not the same as before. It is becoming stronger, more confident, and more assertive. African nations will no longer allow themselves to be treated like second-class members of global politics. South Africa's behavior is now being used as an example for other African countries. It proves that you do not need anger to show strength. Sometimes, silence and calmness are more powerful than shouting, and in this case, South Africa's dignity spoke louder than any argument. The situation between South Africa and the United States is not just about a summit or travel arrangements. It is about something much bigger: sovereignty and respect. Sovereignty means that a nation controls its own decisions without interference. For many years, African countries were pressured by powerful nations to follow certain policies, sign certain agreements, or behave in certain ways. But now Africa is changing. More African leaders are saying, "We are equal partners, not junior partners. We deserve respect, just like any other continent." South Africa's stand showed that Africa is serious about protecting its dignity. For too long, Africa was seen as a continent that needs help, aid, or guidance. But Africa is rich in resources, culture, and talent. It is the home of 1.4 billion people. It is a continent that supplies the world with minerals, energy, and innovation. This moment sends a strong message. Africa wants equal treatment in global politics. No more double standards, no more disrespect, no more being spoken down to. This is why Africans celebrated South Africa's decision. It symbolized a new chapter where African nations decide their own future. It also inspired citizens to believe that Africa can become a strong leader in the world, not just a follower. Sovereignty is not just a word, it is a mindset. It is about standing tall and saying, "We control our continent, we make our decisions, we demand fairness." This moment is proof that Africa is awakening. The world is beginning to realize that Africa will no longer accept humiliation. Africa will stand tall, proud, and united for its rights. In the last few years, Africa has started to rise in many powerful ways. Countries are building new factories, improving technology, expanding energy production, and joining new global alliances like BRICS. African youth are becoming more educated, more aware, and more active in shaping the future of the continent. Many African countries are discovering their true economic potential. For example, nations like Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, and Rwanda are building new industries. Nigeria, Angola, and Mozambique are expanding energy production. South Africa, Egypt, and Morocco are growing fast in manufacturing and technology. BRICS expansion is also changing Africa's global position. With more African countries joining BRICS, the continent is getting stronger trade deals, more investment, and more political power. This helps reduce dependence on Western nations. African youth are also playing a huge role. With 60% of the population under the age of 25, Africa has the youngest population in the world. Millions of young Africans are starting businesses, creating apps, learning digital skills, and becoming entrepreneurs. This is creating a new wave of economic growth. Politically, Africa is becoming more independent. Many leaders are rejecting foreign pressure and choosing partnerships that respect African interests. Countries are also working together more than before through the African Union and regional blocs. This rising Africa is making the world pay attention. Powerful nations now realize that Africa is not weak or helpless. Africa is the future, a market of billions, a source of key minerals, and a hub of creativity. The situation with South Africa and the US shows that Africa is ready to stand firm. Africa is rising, and soon the world will have no choice but to treat Africa as an equal global power. When South Africa announced that it would not travel to the United States for the G20 handover, social media across the entire African continent exploded with excitement. People from Nigeria to Kenya, Ghana to Tanzania, and Egypt to Botswana were all celebrating. It became a moment of continental pride. Many Africans felt that finally one of their countries had stood up to a global superpower with confidence. They said, "This is the Africa we want. Bold, confident, and fearless." South Africa's stand made millions of Africans feel respected and empowered. People posted messages like, "Africa will no longer kneel. This is dignity. This is the beginning of a new era." For years, Africans have felt that the world does not take their continent seriously. They felt that African leaders often travel abroad to seek approval or support. But this time, the situation was different. South Africa refused to chase the US. This made many Africans feel strong and united. The moment also created conversations among young Africans. They said their continent must stop depending so much on foreign nations and start relying on itself. This mindset is very important for Africa's future. South Africa's stand also reminded Africans of their power. Africa is a continent full of resources, talent, and opportunities. The people saw this moment as a sign that Africa can take control of its destiny. The excitement on social media showed that Africans want leaders who protect their dignity. They want a continent that walks tall, and South Africa's bold decision gave them hope that Africa is moving in that direction. The United States has many military bases across Africa. These bases were built over many years for different reasons, including fighting terrorism, protecting trade routes, and supporting allies. But these bases also show something else: long-term influence and control. Countries like Niger, Djibouti, Kenya, Botswana, and others host US military installations. These bases give the US strategic power in Africa. It means the US can monitor African countries, respond quickly to events, and maintain a strong presence on the continent. But this also creates a problem. When a country depends too much on a foreign military, it becomes harder to make independent decisions. For example, if the US disagrees with an African government, they may use their influence to pressure that country. This has happened many times in Africa's history. South Africa's recent decision shows they want to reduce such influence. Many Africans believe that foreign military presence limits Africa's sovereignty. They say, "How can Africa be truly free if other countries control our security?" Some African leaders want to remove foreign bases, but many countries fear losing protection or financial support. This is why unity is so important. A united Africa can build its own security forces, protect its own borders, and depend less on outside nations. The presence of US bases is a reminder that Africa must work harder to become self-reliant. South Africa's bold move encourages the continent to start thinking about its long-term independence and control over its land and politics. This moment is making many Africans re-evaluate their future. A strong united Africa can decide its own destiny without relying on foreign powers. One of Africa's biggest challenges is disunity. The continent has 54 countries, each with its own language, culture, currency, and political system. This makes it difficult for African nations to act as one powerful group. Foreign countries understand this very well. Because Africa is divided, powerful nations can easily influence one country at a time. For example, if South Africa refuses to sell minerals to a foreign nation, that nation can simply buy from Congo, Zambia, or Botswana. This weakens Africa's bargaining power. When African countries compete against each other, instead of working together, they lose. It becomes easier for foreign powers to create conflicts, control markets, and pressure governments. This is why African unity is so important. Imagine if all African countries spoke with one voice. They could set prices for minerals, negotiate stronger trade deals, protect their industries, and build their own future. South Africa's recent bold move shows that unity makes Africa stronger. If more countries support each other, the continent will be harder to manipulate. Unity does not mean all countries must be the same. It means cooperation. It means standing together when one African nation is disrespected. If Africa unites, it becomes one of the strongest regions in the world. The continent has the resources, the population, and the creativity to succeed. All that is needed is unity and confidence. South Africa's stand has reminded Africans that together they can achieve more. Unity is the key to true independence and power. What South Africa did is more than a political action. It is a symbol of a new era for Africa. For many years, Africa was seen as weak, dependent, and submissive. But now Africa is showing strength, confidence, and leadership. South Africa's decision tells the world that Africa will not accept disrespect. It tells the world that Africa deserves equal treatment. It tells the world that Africa is changing forever. This new Africa is bold. It is not afraid to speak the truth. It is not afraid to stand alone when necessary. African countries are becoming more independent, more strategic, and more united. Young Africans are rising. They want dignity, equality, and opportunity. They want African leaders who protect the continent's interests. They want an Africa that controls its own future. Countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, South Africa, and others are teaching the world that Africa will no longer kneel or be controlled. This is inspiring millions. The shift toward BRICS, the rise of African industries, the growth of African innovation, all these things show that Africa is becoming a major global player. South Africa's stand is a message to the world. Africa is awake. This is just the beginning. More African nations will demand fairness, respect, and equal partnership. This moment will be remembered as a turning point. The world must now sit with Africa as equals, not as masters. The sleeping giant has awakened, and nothing will be the same.